So welcome, Sam, to our third podcast, Eat, Sleep, Business by Plus24. How's your week been so far?
It's been very good, yeah. I had some great feedback on the first couple of episodes.
Yeah, same. I've had quite a few people get in touch and talk, send messages saying, it's they're enjoying it and they want us to continue and stuff like that. So it's good.
I think good to see a bit of an audience growing and obviously getting some questions in and different kind of points to talk about. So yeah, that's been good.
Just over 1,000 listens, I think, on the last one, wasn't there?
Yeah, through the different streaming services. Yeah.
So that's good to see. So thanks everybody for logging in. And I did have one message that said, I think in the first episode I mentioned if it just helps one person, then it's mission achieved. And they sent me a message to say you've accomplished your mission because they've started to act on some of the stuff we advised in that first podcast. So
amazing.
Putting together that plan moving forward. So yeah, that was give me a real boost to crack on and pull some more of these together. So I think we've got a topic for this week, and it's something that I'm massively passionate about, as you know. So for those of you that aren't aware, there's a number of sides to our business. The name can be a little bit cryptic, I suppose. So we've got the marketing side, and Sam heads that up really effectively, and we've got a software development side of the company, and that is bespoke software and research and development for tech. So one of the things that side of the business does is pull together software which will streamline business processes. And I'm so passionate about this, and it's just so important for businesses to look at their processes now when we know that things are going to be a little bit tough moving forward. Competition are going to step up the game. Businesses are going to have to be efficient in order to remain at the top of their game and continue to trade. So I mean, we've saved literally tens of thousands of hours with the software that we've implemented in business. What are your thoughts on the whole automation process? Because sometimes automation gets a bit of a negative name, I suppose.
Yeah, I think as soon as you mention that word or people hear it, they think, job cuts, robots replacing people and things like that. Yeah. And I think we've seen over the years, I mean, it's obviously been largely, or it's mostly larger companies that kind of adopted software and moved towards the automation process. It's obviously become a lot more affordable and cost effective now for smaller businesses to get involved. But I think it also shows in those larger businesses that the robots don't replace the people, they help the people. It makes your life easier. A lot of the time people are writing on Post-it notes and that's replaced by CRM or even a project management tool. You forget to follow up with a client or you forget to follow up with a lead. Again, CRM. Even, things like ordering and things like that, where normally, you've got orders on paper or emails or something like that, put it all through one system, pulls it all together. There's so many different ways that it can help a business that I think it's great to see more people embracing it because they'll reap the benefits long term ultimately.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right. A little while ago, it was mainly the larger businesses that implemented this, but it has become more cost effective now. And there are some great off-the-shelf platforms as well as what we do in terms of bespoke. But so smaller businesses, I think actually the smaller businesses are going to be the ones that have to be the most agile. And some of those efficiencies will be easier to implement in this scenario for smaller businesses because they'll be able to turn on a hairpin, whereas a larger business might struggle to adapt and move into a more agile automation situation quite the same speed. So there's an advantage to SMEs here to really sort of start catching up on some of their competition. So let's just whiz through some. You mentioned a couple of examples, and I think they're really good examples. So I just want to, before we go into the process that will help businesses to identify where systems and processes can help. And by the way, when I'm talking about looking at your systems and processes, I'm also talking about your physical processes. I'm not just talking about bringing in software. Software, yes, can help in a lot of cases, but actually just reviewing your processes and seeing where you over-engineer tasks can have a massive impact on your business. You know, saving half an hour a day over the course of a year is a huge amount of time. And you know, so if you can save, you know, just half an hour a day by reducing the amount of manual tasks you've got, then you're gonna be winning there. So a few examples, a couple that you picked up on. I think in the sales process, you know, let's face it, Sam, right? Salespeople are lazy, and I know that there's going to be some salespeople absolutely blasting me for saying that, but the reality is that salespeople are lazy. And the second thing is that a salesperson can't possibly remember everything in his head. And yet the amount of businesses that still rely on an individual keeping his own diary, a series of notes, post-it notes, documents stored on his desktop, on his laptop that probably aren't backed up, by the way, manually writing quotations. You know, it's such a horrendously overcomplicated part of a business. So an effective CRM, and here's a couple of examples. So you can automate the production of your quotations. You can automate the sending of your quotations. If your quotations are sent to a client through an effective system, it can remind you to chase it up. It can even do some of the chasing for you and send you a little notification to say, hey, do you know what? I've just chased up this quotation, not had a reply yet. I think you should follow up with a phone call in 24 hours. You know, a system can take the thinking out of that so that a salesperson can do what they are good at. And salespeople are good at talking. They're not good at sending emails or following up processes or remembering that they promised to call somebody back, you know, to follow up a quote in a week. The amount of times that I've had somebody try to sell to me and they've sent a quotation and said, I'll ring you back next week. And then 3 weeks later, I get that phone call. You know, I'm guilty of it myself sometimes, you know, and that's because everybody's busy and they've got stuff to do. So there's a huge potential for streamlining processes. And you said just on a quick chat before this, it's not just about the I suppose the saving of time, is it? You've got loads of different benefits that you know that your customers will see.
Yeah, it ultimately helps you deliver a better service. So if you're keeping on top of things, whether it is from a project management perspective, obviously in us delivering a service to our clients, you know, they want things delivered on time within budget. It helps you keep on top of things. So we've got a project management tool that we use that keeps everyone on track. Everyone's accountable. Makes managing the projects really easy because it breaks everything down into individual tasks. Whereas if you were trying to do that and just having a meeting at the start of it and leaving people to it, you'd be chasing your tail each week, like not knowing where you're at. So you deliver a better service because it keeps you on track and on budget. Obviously, the customers can be kept more in the loop. So some of our clients have access to similar tools, so they can see where the projects are at, get updates on things. And obviously, we use elements of bespoke software, but there's off-the-shelf options out there for people. So for project management, you might use Basecamp or Asana or something like that. For CRMs, obviously, you might use something like HubSpot or Zoho. So there's off-the-shelf stuff that's like, some of it's free, some of it's like 20 or 50 quid a month. But you think about that, if that saves you an hour or two each month, it probably is going to save you a lot more than that. Yeah. It's worth that investment. So yeah, it's not just the internal benefits; it's some of the external benefits to your clients as well.
Yeah, I agree, and you're 100% right. You know, it's not. Whilst we write bespoke software, we integrate into existing software and things like that. We will always investigate an off-the-shelf solution first, because we're not about reinventing the wheel. We're about putting bespoke software in places where there isn't an off-the-shelf piece that will work exactly. Off-the-shelf works in a lot of cases, but there's a lot of cases where I firmly believe a bespoke piece will work in the sense of you know how your business, you know, a lot of business owners and managers and leaders, they know how their business is run effectively. And if they have to change the way they work for a piece of software, then I don't necessarily always think that that's the right way to go. And it might be that your upfront investment for a bespoke piece of software is more, but over long term, you'll get you'll reap your rewards and it'll be cheaper in the long run. And indeed, we estimate that the majority, if not all, of our bespoke pieces have been cost neutral to our clients. We can highlight case studies of that. So I think we've talked about the need to do it. So let's talk about some of the processes that we think that. And again, these are tidbits from these podcasts. These are things to get you going. It's not in-depth stuff. We want people to take this and then do their own research and follow through with it. So I'll just take you through kind of the steps that we need to go to. So the first thing is you need to really document the process that your business goes through. And I think it's often a good idea to categorize that. So you might have your business development. You might even include your marketing before your business development, then your business development, your project delivery or your product delivery process, and then your after sales. So every business will be different, but it might be worthwhile categorizing 3 or 4 different steps that you go through as a business. And then you need to write down on paper what actually happens, who touches it, who has to see it, who has to sign it off, and really write all of those processes down, put it into a nice flow chart if you can. And just by doing that process, most businesses will have a look and they'll say, flipping heck, this goes through a lot of steps in order to get the sale. And so very quickly you can identify from writing that down on paper, because nobody ever does this, by the way. Nobody ever thinks, oh, do you know what? I need to review my processes, so I'll write it down on paper. And this is a digital agency telling people to write things with a pencil and a rubber and just write it down on paper, because it will help. And then you'll be able to quite quickly there see where you've over-engineered steps. So if it has to go through Janice and Bob and David before it gets to Peter, who can sign it off, does it really need to touch all of those people? And you might quickly say, well, you might think that it does. And therefore, is that a paper process? And if so, you're losing a couple of days every time that piece of paper goes from one desk to another desk. And there's loads of research done on this whole passing paper around offices and stuff. So is there a system in place where you can put it on there and it automatically notifies that person? So it's not sat in a paper tray. And you know what the worst thing about paper trays is, and they should be banned in all offices, by the way, because the oldest thing ends up at the bottom of the pile. And that might be the most urgent thing, but people keep coming along and putting more paperwork on top. So one that's arrived 5 minutes ago gets looked at first, and the one that's sat there for 2 days continues to get deeper in the pile. So it's a completely inefficient way of working. So that you've already immediately found some time savings there. So you'll find where you've over-engineered it, and then identify the actual tasks themselves and prioritize them. I think that's an important thing, because if you put it into a category, you can use the classic project planning and prioritization where you put it into 4 quadrants or whatever you decide to do, and you've found that you've got some tasks in that process that are really low priority. Do they even need to be there? Can they just be cut out altogether? Is there a person who's spending half his time doing that who could be doing something more proactive? I guess, and then once you've identified that whole process, you then need to look at systems and look at automation. If somebody has to type a quote, why? If somebody has to re-enter anything that is typed, that is a massive bugbear of mine. I hate double entry. What is the point? There is no point of typing something that's already been typed. And yet so many businesses rely on that process. Quotations, once they've been sent once, there should be automated reminders. It's not difficult to achieve some of these processes. And very quickly, I think you'll identify some savings there. And we're not talking about cutting out man hours to create job losses and cost savings there. What we're doing is talking about people being more efficient. Salespeople aren't employed to type quotes. Salespeople are employed to build relationships and talk to people.
And obviously that's better for the business, because the business gets more out of that person. but
Yeah,
that person's probably more satisfied in their job because they're not doing the boring admin
exactly.
and typing. So there's multiple benefits to all these things. Like the business saves money, probably makes more money, the person's more satisfied. So just by
Yeah.
streamlining one process or one element of a process.
And the customer's more informed. So there are no losers in this process other
mm,
than initial investment. But I can guarantee that once you've done that initial investment, you very soon start to reap the rewards there. So yeah, so that's kind of a really whistle stop kind of process that you can go through. There'll be a similar theme to this, Sam. Right? First podcast, one page, get your plan together. Second podcast, here's a few tips on your marketing. One page, write your notes down. Third podcast, write your processes down. It's one page per category of process. It shouldn't need any more than that.
mm,
And then just scribble on it. Do you need to do this? Ask yourself the question, do we need to go through this step? Can this step be made quicker? Is there a system in place? Can we get a system or build a system that does these steps to speed up that process up or make us more efficient? Is the customer informed at every step along the way? Because we're talking about customer satisfaction as well, not just efficiencies in your own business, but can you help your customers and therefore win them over more by keeping them more informed, letting them know exactly when things are going to arrive, when they're going to get delivery of the service or the product, at what stage it's at. If there's
mm.
anything delaying it, they can have complete clarity on that. So yeah, so that's it. I think we can. I'd love to get some feedback as well. Is your business a little bit over engineered? Have you made some cost savings? Have you made some time savings? What are your thoughts on that? So I've
Yeah,
had
I think
quite a few people. Go on,
yeah,
sorry.
like what's the biggest sticking point in your
Yeah,
businesses? And if we can kind of identify whether it's like sales or whether it's, just like following up or whatever it might be, sorting orders, whatever it might be, let us know what kind of the biggest sticking point is, and we can try and give some pointers on kind of what to look at and what questions to ask to hopefully streamline those processes.
I'd love for somebody or a few people to send in their live examples and their one pages to us, and then we can actually talk through those in another podcast in the future. And really talk through those steps and see if we can help those businesses. But there'll be loads of businesses in their situation as well. We've given a few examples, but there's nothing like actually getting a real sort of live example from somebody who has some sticking points. So that's a great shout. I'm excited. I love that. I love that. I love the thought of going through a few people's businesses and looking at their processes. We do this professionally, but I think fairly quickly in 5 or 10 minutes, we can probably whiz through a process and find some quick wins for some of the businesses out there. So that'd be great.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
have
well,
you
great.
anything to add? Automation, business automation, systems, processes. It's something that every business should be reviewing right now. It's, if you've got your plan together, if you've got your marketing strategy, the next step, look at your processes, see where you can make some time savings, cost savings, and increase your customer service. Because let's face it, some businesses are going to they're going to struggle. We want people to be optimistic, but the reality is some businesses are going to struggle and go. So you've got to be looking at your efficiencies now before it becomes a major issue.
Yeah, strengthen.
Yeah, cool. So hope you enjoy the rest of your week, Sam, and thanks everybody for listening. If you've got this far and we've not sent you asleep so far, that'd be absolutely amazing. So yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Nice one. See you later.
See you in a bit. Bye.